And Mickey, who was muted.
Yes, of course. On WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio or freedomslips.com, where it's more than just radios. To jump in the chat room if you can. This is show number 418.
8, 10, and 400. That means we are in our, well, pretty much in our 10th, I'm sorry, in a 9th year. We're in our ninth year of broadcasting. You've been listening to us for 9 years. Well done to you.
Thank you, actually. Wow, someone just typed the most amount of information I've ever seen into the chat room. Okay, so it's on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen for anywhere, or if you are probably like the rest of us in the entire world, we'll be listening from home. And you could be doing that through a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you missed Solaris' show, it was a good show. She had her Witching Hour show on today. That was very good. And, they covered so many things that wasn't funny. So, but if you don't know who we're talking about, we're going to talk about Solaris Blue Raven. Check out her show, and just a wave to Tones there in the chat room. I spoke to Tones before the show, by the way. Okay. If you don't know who we're talking about when we say I don't know, it's $5 a month, and you could subscribe to those. We do recommend that you do that. There's Miss Blue Raven there, right there in the chat room too. Now, there's wrong notes. There we go. So we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. Where I live, it's the Dark and Young people, and where Meki lives,
it's the Dark people.
Well done. And we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Meki.
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
Oh, okay. Well, I shan't say it one more time. So this week has not ceased to entertain me. We have so much. The news. I'm not dying. That's my little thing. I do now when I'm in the queue at the checkout in the supermarket, in the market, I cough and repeat to the person behind me, "Oh, gee, this just keeps getting worse since I've come back from overseas." And there's no more queue. So I dare you to do that.
Too soon.
Too soon?
Too soon.
That's funny. The guy that I said it to in the shopping centre, he nearly wet himself laughing. I thought it was hilarious. He said he's going to do it next time. Because people have gone mad in the shopping centres. They've gone mad.
Yes.
You know, I've been thinking about this, that sci-fi writers have got it so wrong. They never, ever have said and shown footage of people coming out of shopping centres with trolleys full of toilet paper. Why was toilet paper a thing? They could rewrite Mad Max, Meki, and have it all about toilet paper, not the oil.
No, it's about honestly, I think it's herd mentality. I think what happened there is that somebody started buying toilet paper at some point, and they decided, hey, I better get some toilet paper. It's like let me put it into perspective. I grew up in Germany in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we did a lot of school trips into East Germany. So I was West Germany, went to East Germany. In East Germany, people would line up for something simply because there was never much stuff to be had. And you would ask them, what are you lining up for? I have no idea, they would say. Well, I don't know what I'm lining up, but clearly it must be something people want. And this is what we're seeing here. Do I need 600 rolls of toilet paper? Probably not. Do I need 600 rolls of tissue paper or kitchen roll or anything like that? Probably not. I want to share something with you which I found quite amusing. So here we go. I'll read it out to you. It was a quiet Monday morning in September 2053 when John awoke with a need to go to the bathroom. To John, this wasn't just any ordinary day. This was the day he would open the last package of toilet paper his parents bought in the year 2020. So what we've seen here is maybe the need to never to have to shop for toilet paper again, ever. And don't understand it, because I can tell you right now, if you're counting on the fact that this will save you somehow from from the virus, you maybe fashion some kind of homemade mask. Not likely. Not likely. I suggest you wear some kind of a plastic bodysuit if you want to go that far. I know that the doctor friends of mine bought themselves like regular masks, of course, because you're a frontline worker, that's what you need. But this particular doctor also bought himself a face shield. You know when you do like welding, except sort of welding shield, it's more like for garden work, right? So it's like a big
I've got one of those.
plastic visor that goes over your.
Yep.
Yeah. So and he's a GP, so I think that's a smart thing to do for him, right? He's right on the front line, and trying to save lives, make a difference, and all that. And he should be as protected as he can be, because those are the people that we need to be protected, right? And so that makes sense. You get some kind of visor like that makes sense, right? And you wash your hands diligently, that makes sense. Buying all that toilet paper doesn't make any sense. On the bright side, the interesting thing is that some people have tried to sell toilet paper at inflated prices here in Australia, online as well as off the back of trucks, and I mean literally off the back of trucks. And the cops have made a couple of arrests there, which I think is brilliant, because I'm with you, Dave. I've read all the Armageddon literature there. I've read sci-fi since I was 8 years old, and not a single writer picked that one.
That's
not
right.
A one. Toilet paper would be quality. Not a one. Not a one.
Just walk away. Leave the toilet paper. Just walk away, and there'll be an end to the horror. I watched Mad Max yesterday, and I just love it. I absolutely love every minute of it. Do you know what? The arrests of selling toilet paper at an inflated cost. Well, I made some arguments to this point today, and that was that the convenience store at the corner of wherever you live doesn't sell it at the small price you might find it at a large market. They sell it because it's convenient at whatever price they want. Now, there is no law that prevents them from selling their toilet paper to you at an inflated price. You just weigh up the convenience of being able to walk away having spent $8 for a single toilet roll at the convenience store, rather than an extra 10 minutes out of your way to go to a market to get it. If those people gained that toilet paper illegally or didn't have a license to sell it retail, then they should be pursued criminally. However, there isn't a law that says you can't put up any price you like on it, even though there are people selling hand sanitizer and all these things and eBay and there's no law that stops them from making whatever price they want. There just isn't. So I commend them for getting shut down, because it's just not Australian, if you want to have an argument. But in court, it was the vibe, Your Honour. It isn't something that I think that they can enforce very easily. I'm happy to be corrected on it, but when I was speaking with people, the media coverage made them look like they were outlaws, but there isn't a law that covers them unless they did some illegal act rather than simply just inflating the price. I quote the half-eaten meat pie on eBay that went for hundreds of dollars. I think it was $800 or some ridiculous thing it went for. There's no reason why he couldn't have done that. Just saying, I'm not selling toilet paper or hand sanitizer or any product whatsoever, and I would just avoid them. They're not going to make money if no one wants to buy it from them. Yeah. So it's a really bizarre place that I stand in at, because I think gouging is wrong, and I think they've called out gouging is wrong, but I don't think they can pursue it legally. I don't think there's there's a law that says they can't, unless of course they're madly writing the law right now that prevents them from doing it. Like I said, if they're not licensed to sell retail or whatever it is, right? So that's their bag. If they had a little receipt book and they kept it all and they handed people receipts and, you know, they had a tap so you could tap your card and do it all without touching anyone and doing it. If they had a proper thing and an accountant, they had a registered business, good luck. Then that should be fine, right? And I realise you can't buy and sell cars for whatever you want, and you can't sell so many without requiring a second-hand car dealer's license. But as far as toilet paper, yeah, I just don't know. There's people that drive, Becky, with seafood inland in a refrigerated van and sell it, you know, within 12 hours of it being caught in towns in the middle of Australia at whatever price they want, because there isn't anything. You can't get that kind of seafood that quickly into these towns. So, I mean, how far is the law able to cover it? I'm not trying to go against what you said, because I do agree that it's just rotten to do it. Yeah, and one of them was up the coast here. So, you know, it may very well have been organised between two truck drivers. All right, so the intended recipient of those toilet papers at a particular store that was out didn't receive it, and that's really bad. All right, so. But I've got to keep saying this, because the media does this really poorly, and that is that the virus itself. I just want to say this at the top of the show, that the media is not naming the virus correctly. They're still doing it, and it drives me nuts. And maybe it's an OCD of mine. Well, definitely it's an OCD. And the virus belongs to the coronavirus family. It's because of it looks like the sun's corona. They're all little bits sticking out, and it's named. The virus originally had a name, and then it was changed, and it was changed to the SARS-CoV-2 virus because of its similarity with the original SARS virus. Lastly, the disease you present is called COVID-19, and everyone in the media is completely getting it wrong, and they're saying the spread of the virus COVID-19, and it isn't. That's the virus that causes the disease, sure. And that just drives me spare. And everyone's saying the wrong words, and I let most of it go, but it's our show and we can do what we want. And I've just stamped that. There you go. So SARS-CoV-2. It's the second version because of its similarity with the original SARS virus. But Meki, since we were on the show last week, man, far out. The figures they're still exponential. The only 3 places in the world it isn't exponential is China, but I'm still going to suggest that those figures aren't right. South Korea, because they're testing. They tested everybody and traced them, and they've locked the people down that are infected, and they've had the least amount of increase. They've tapered the curve off, and they're doing really well, and probably from start to finish their success is a testament to their quick reaction to
Singapore too. Singapore did really well.
Yeah, good. But on all of the graphs that I've got, where I'm tracking every country's infections, the infection rates are all on the exponential curve up. Like in the 50 club, I get that, right? That's when you should start to trying to control it. In the 100 club, same deal. Should have already been doing something about it. But in the 1,000 club, it's gone. It's left you. It's out of control. In the 10,000 club, good luck with that. There's no way you can't do contact tracing in the 1,000 club or the 10,000 club anymore. It's gone. It's left, and there's nothing you can do except for total shutdown.
Yeah, you got to shut down. That's what you have to do.
But that's what I'm saying. So in the 50 club, you had the ability to test everybody, right? In the 100 club, yeah, you should have been doing it last week, but there was still time. Once you get to 1,000 and 10,000, it's gone from you. And when I was looking, Mickey, and I can't help myself. I really can't help myself. I was looking through this, and the other one was the cruise ship, by the way. It's the only one that hasn't In fact, it was 702. It went down to 696 and then up again to 716, which I can't understand how it went down, then went up again. Anyway, that's not my problem. But the current word here is that lockdowns are an inevitability. It's going to happen, and it's something I think we'll all have to get used to. So with my friends all around the world, we're talking about what's it going to look like if you're shut down? How is it going to be? What's the kind of patient rates that your hospitals are going to blow out with? Flatten your curve is a great discussion from the government, but if they're not already locking it down, they're more than 8 weeks behind 8 times the quantity of tested versus infected in the community, because it's already left you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it now, except for the shutdown. So when it gets to you, what's it going to look like? So the pretty media and the nice 10-second grab from the government, we have to do this. But how does that differ, Mackie, from the actual actions? So I think our government is going to announce something like others have coming up. Monday they're going to meet, and hopefully they're going to have a statement to put out. But I think Victoria has already suggested that they're going to shut their schools on Tuesday. And
that is correct.
Our state government has said, since the government is so terrible at managing this, we're probably going to make the call to shut down too in New South Wales. That's the way it's going. It's tracking at the moment. This is the words coming from our own state governments and the federal government. So this is all of their controlled messaging. The martial law, the military controlling your passage, that kind of schools closed, small businesses shut, transportation stopped, everything like that we saw. We saw all of this effect. We saw that overseas. And we're seeing this now in states within states. The state is getting closed in the US.
They're talking about shutting down suburbs in Australia. I had a conversation yesterday that looking at locking down suburbs.
Because
and I don't know if that's going to happen.
Have major roads going in and out of them, and they can border those off.
Correct. You can at least stop train, bus, and car traffic. I mean, foot traffic is harder, of course. So yeah, that's actually good. That's good, because that means that is still considered to be an effective measure, because if you have to shut down cities, then that's the city, right? But if you can shut down neighborhoods within cities, that's probably not a bad idea to contain it. But everybody should stay home, I think. In my opinion.
Yes, completely. Limiting your contact with others is certainly the best way to prevent yourself from getting it. And all the other messaging, which is accurate, and that's, washing your hands, don't touch your face. If you're using gloves, still don't touch your face, because while it can't go through the glove, you really need to take the gloves off and then still wash your hands. Anything you touched before you wash your hands is still like your car keys, for instance. If you go to the store and you've, done the hand sanitizer before getting back in the car, but you took your keys out before you sanitized your hands, then your keys are still going to be a carrier. So it's very careful. That the handle on the cart is extraordinary danger to you. That while you're pushing your cart around the shops, you have to make sure that you don't touch your hands, so your face with your hands. There's so many places and it can be on the packaging. You don't know if some staff member sneezed, so make sure that you wipe things down before you touch them, before you put them away as well. I spoke last week, I think, Mackie, wasn't it, about the Biosecurity Act that's been enabled in Australia, which allows the deployment of military checkpoints and detainment. So you can be detained if you don't have any papers, no ID. I say papers because I had a quote there. Do you have your papers? I don't know what accent that is. It comes from some place on the planet. And then also refusing.
It was German accent.
It wasn't.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Show me your papers now. Where are your papers? Come with me if you want to die.
Come with me. So if you refuse to answer a question at a checkpoint, you can be detained. And you're detained militarily, not police. There's no police doing this. It's military. And once that occurs, your civil rights are out the window. There's no arguing that you're a sovereign citizen, right? And you're not owned by the country. That's never going to fly. Good luck with that. And they got weapons, and so that's going to be bad. Now, the government is going to talk about the scale of their shutdowns, and I think that's a really important message. But the state governments are dubious because of the financial bias rather than the public safety bias that's been displayed so far. They're super critical of the actions that they could take, which would have a negative impact on our financial system. So on the budget, on the economy, on the successful nature or unsuccessful actions that could lead to businesses collapse and the big four banks and interest rates, and rather than the public. So we've seen other countries now, Mekki, that have all volunteered themselves to have rent holidays and loan holidays, so you won't have to pay back any of these if you're in lockdown. Some countries are talking about a living wage, which is really interesting, sort of preempting. These were already in discussion, Mekki. They were in discussion about what would happen if AI took over, if robotics basically put everyone out of a job. What would it look like? Living wage. So they've had these discussions and they're ready to go with this, but is this the time to do it? That's
this is a great test case. You have to understand, and sorry, because nobody seems to be listening to but nobody seems to be listening to the hypothesis. So everybody seems to think this is such a big surprise. We've been talking about this particular event for 9 years. Right?
9 years.
And I'm not saying that these are all doom and gloom figures at all. I mean, I'm not saying worst case projections are going to come to pass. I'm not going to say it's going to be best case projections, but there are going to be some. Because this disease is going to run its course, and it's going to run its course, over the next, let's call it 6 months. And it may just disappear like SARS and MERS, but it might not. Vaccines are being tested. There are 8 possible vaccines coming our way now. We use supercomputers to get those developed quicker, which is great. Technology being used for the common good. I'm glad to see that. But my point here is this is not an unexpected event. I told you all that we need to do something, or something would happen to stop us from reaching 7.76 billion people, right?
Mm-hmm. And here it is.
Well, potentially. If not this is because SARS and MERS, in my opinion, were test cases. But this, even the immensity of it, is a test case still. But what it will do, and I'm not saying that a lot of people, I'm not saying that the death toll is going to just, going to go through the roof and be horrific. I mean, it's horrific enough as it is. But I'm not saying it's going to be tens or hundreds of millions of people. But what it will do, it'll have a lasting impact on the world and world economy. Things will change. In a depressed economy, there are usually, studies have shown, less births. There's less population growth. There are knock-on effects here, right? People losing their jobs. If we think people are starving to death today, you just wait till the economy, gets fully hit by this, and developing nations will be in strife. That's the thing. Right? Make no mistake. And even if you get this under control, this will dent our confidence for years to come. Mm-hmm. And maybe, just maybe, and this is a leap here, and maybe it was necessary to create this massive negative energetic vibration, and this is going to get a bit esoteric here, in order to suppress the awareness cascade. If there's enough negativity around, maybe the number is not enough. Maybe 7.76 billion is not enough to overcome this kind of shock, this kind of negativities, and we cannot ascend, as I thought we might. So this is not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to any of you. I'm not saying this was engineered, but I'm not saying it wasn't either. All right? And then you have to also ask yourself, who's benefiting here? And this is a horrible thing to think about. And I know you're going to say I'm nuts, which is fine. That's okay. But we had a number of issues coming our way. Forget the hypothesis for a second. Let's just park it. That's just, Dave, from my opinion here. That's to the side. What's the biggest problem that was hitting the first world nations? An aging population. Mm-hmm. The inability to pay for an aging population, because with the introduction of the birth control pill and other things, such as a better lifestyle, higher life expectancy, people having kids later or not at all due to affluence.
The 20-year gap from the bulge of the elderly down to the next generation because of World War II.
Yes.
So that gap,
exactly.
Gap that's a lull, if it wasn't a lull and it was a bulge on its own, there'd be enough income to support the elderly. Because you would imagine there'd be a shape like a bell curve, right? Where the majority of people would be in the middle, but the majority of people are at the end.
Yeah. And look, it was a baby. Look, after World War II, Dave is quite right. There was something called the generation called the baby boomers. Usually after a catastrophic event like a world war, like a pandemic, birth rates go through the roof. And oddly enough, after a war, specifically a war, male births statistically outnumber female births.
Oh, really?
And it's just what happens. Yeah, absolutely. I've done the research. It's really interesting. After every major conflict, since we've started records on this, after every major conflict, the births of males significantly outweigh the births of girls. Now, so baby boomers, so a lot of children were born, but then there was, like I said, the introduction of the birth control pill, and it was in German it's called the Pillenknick, there's a massive decline in births after the birth control pill. This was easy now. Birth control was easy. You just take a pill, boom. I mean, forget all the other knock-on effects it has on your body, but that was an easy thing to do, right? And Dave is quite right. There's a massive gap now between the people that will work or are working, right? From now and the next, looking forward into the next 20 years, there'll be less people working than people that require age care or pensions or retirement benefits or any of these things, simply because there are more old people, less young people, and we live longer and we live healthier, right? And the thing is this: we live longer, but the longer you live, the more likely you are to eventually need some kind of medical assistance or some kind of assistance and that costs money as well, and there's no money for it. So where am I going with this? Now, where am I going with this is this virus, or seemingly so, is terrible for the elderly and people that have some kind of comorbidity, some underlying condition, diabetes, obesity, lung conditions, anything like that. So if you're already weak, then that's like the flu, then you will, you can die from complications. But it really, the elderly are really at risk here. And if you're really cynical like me, then you're solving a number of problems here. Geopolitically, China can no longer sustain itself or advertise itself as the global production hub for everything. That's going to go away. Mm-hmm. That's going to go away. We've proven that this doesn't work anymore. But we also see now a lot of elderly people are dying. A lot. And in fact, in Lombardy, where it's really bad in Italy, they said an entire generation has been wiped out.
That's right.
Right? And it's pretty horrendous there. And Italy is by far the worst. And I don't know. I mean, it's just I'm astounded. I mean, other places have infections, but nobody. And if we can, I don't know if we can believe the Chinese numbers or not, but we can certainly believe the Spanish numbers or the German numbers, right? French numbers. We can believe South Korean numbers. Italy is just by far in the worst shape of any nation.
That's 44% case fatality rate.
Yeah, that's
it's crazy.
Just look. Yeah, it is, which of course then pushes up the overall fatality rate now at 12%.
That's right.
Okay, it's now sitting at 12%. So if you take Italy out of the equation, it's well below 10%, which is really,
except for the USA.
Oh, US, but it's 348. Right? Well, no. Actually, so in the US, we got 178 recoveries, or people that have kicked it, and you got 348 that passed. So actually, the mortality rate in the US is higher than the recovery rate.
That's right, okay? And that's why that turns out to be 64%.
Yeah, but those
at the moment of only outpatients, and I have to stress this, that once a virus is done, you're only counting outpatients. So those people that either died or recovered from it, and what's that ratio between the two as a percentage of the recovered, right? Of the people who are outpatients. That's how these numbers are. They're not. They're only worked on the current data. So whatever that means, that's the way it is. And Mackie, I've been criticised for obviously social media criticism there to tell me all my numbers are wrong, and I just point them at the Johns Hopkins website saying all I'm getting from here, and this same display panel is being used by the governments of the world. That's the numbers they're using.
So I'm not using Johns Hopkins, but our numbers are similar. So I've got the Worldometer, which is updated. I've seen the Worldometer, every 10 hours. So in fact, the numbers are the same except for France.
Yeah, I know. That's really bizarre.
It is bizarre. Every number is to the person, or maybe there's probably variance of maybe 10, 20, whatever it might be.
That's just the update rate, yeah.
But France is a completely different number. I have
on
my
display that 12 recovered.
Yeah. Whereas exactly. And the Worldometer shows 1,500, almost 1,600 recovered.
Well, so I would hope that it was a typo, and at the next update, when they went by midday tomorrow, that it's all up to date.
What Johns Hopkins also doesn't show you is the recovered. Like Nepal is still shown as having a case on Johns Hopkins, whereas in reality, the one person that was sick in Nepal actually is now better. Like there was one person that was sick and now recovered. Now Nepal has no active cases, 0, as an example. And Tibet, Tibet, interestingly, doesn't have any cases either. Tibet is not on the list. So here's my advice to anyone that's listening. If you want to be safe from this, or relatively safe, and you don't have it already, Nepal and Tibet. In fact, I can't find Peru.
Yeah, Peru's there. Either. And Greenland. Yeah.
Peru, I can't see Peru.
No, Peru's there. Peru has a case.
Okay. Well, look, there's neither here nor there, but it seems that Nepal and Tibet are the places to be. I can't see Peru, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It looks like, but if it were, if
318 in Peru,
it doesn't matter.
And but look, one recovered Nepal, Tibet, according to this, and 5 deaths. So they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, and this is really interesting because that's one thing I wanted to highlight, and then I'll hand it back to you, my friend, completely. No, but let you look at the numbers here. So these numbers we can now trust because look, China's probably obfuscating, but that's neither here nor there. So okay, Italy has got almost 54,000 cases, right? Yeah. Almost 5,000 people have passed away, and about 6,000 people have gotten better, right? And in Germany, look at Germany. Germany's got 22,000 cases, and 84 people have passed away, and people that have gotten better are 200 and some. And serious or critical cases are listed as two. Whereas France, 14,000 cases, and that might be a discrepancy that Dave and I have the numbers, 562 have passed away and 1,500 have recovered, but there are 1,500 in a serious condition, as opposed to the 2 in Germany. So do Germans have better immune systems? I don't know. I'm looking at these numbers, and I look at Spain especially. Spain has got 25,000, Germany almost 23. So those numbers are pretty close. Spain, 1,400 have passed away, 2,000 have recovered, right? And 1,600 are critical. 1,600 are critical with 21,000, almost 22,000 active cases. Germany, 22,000 altogether, 84 have died, 200 have recovered, and there are 22,000 active cases. So Spain and Germany have the same amount of active cases, okay? Except in total recovered in Spain is much higher, whereas serious and critical in Spain is also much higher with 1,600 as opposed to 2 in Germany. So somewhere, I don't know if these numbers are true or not, and Austria is astounding. Austria has got 3,000 cases, 8 people have passed, 9 have recovered, 3,000 are active now, and 59 in a serious condition. So it's really and Belgium is even better. Belgium has got a great recovery rate. You can really tell, I think, which countries have a pretty good healthcare system. In Japan, remember Japan was one of the early outbreaks?
Yeah.
Only 800 active cases and 36 people passed away.
Yeah, so some of that was their infections came directly from the cruise ship treatment of those people, and they thought they were doing really well, and they had a big flare up, but it's tapered off somewhat, and I think you're right, but I think there's more than just the health system. It might be the way that they clothe themselves and prepare and prevent case spreading.
Maybe.
It could be.
Maybe.
It could also be the age distribution of the people who are becoming infected. Whether or not the messaging is getting through to them that they're doing the right thing, or this social distancing thing that just keeps coming to light every time you turn the news on. Coronavirus is pushing away all of the really good news stories that just there's no time for them in the media. I'm seeing. So it's all encompassing. There's so many messages, Megan. One of those is that it's a psyop. There's 5G as the blame for the whole thing. There's a whole percentage of people that don't believe it even is a real thing. It's because it's not happening to me. I don't know, right? I think that's natural. You're probably going to find those outliers. There's a certain good number of people who are seeing this as a true concern, and if you go anywhere near the figures from 1918, you can see that this. I think the case fatality rate is speaking for itself. Overall, I can't wait to see what happens by the end, and compare it against the other major virus outbreaks that we've seen in human history. I think that's really important for us to do. The second wave of this in 1918 through 1920, when it tapered off in 1919 and then came back and killed more in that second wave, we're still looking at other variants. We've got 2 variants, and there's a possible third one that hasn't been tested yet. And I'm just saying it's hearsay, but it's out there. And is that going to be worse or better? Because normally the virus mutates itself into an inert state. It just is less potent, it loses some of its abilities and then it's gone, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. I just want to, every single day when I type these numbers in, it's reading like 2 things. One, it's like the competitors in the Eurovision Song Contest, all the country names, Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Latvia, Portugal, all of those, and I have a little, and I'm trying to not be too connected to the numbers. But the other way of seeing this is now I'm watching the rise of the US numbers come up through the deck. Australia's 20th. Well, that's really close to the Olympics, I thought to myself. And then I'm watching the US, it's like the gold medal tally with it, Sadly, Russia isn't charting very much at all. Numbers are very low. I hope that that's to be believed, and that they really aren't, and they've got these controls. A lot of people that I talk to, Mackie, say, well, they're just taken out the back and shot. Maybe that's happening in North Korea. I'm not sure that that's the new Russia. I don't know. I doubt it.
Anything is possible. It's doubtful, but it's possible, of course.
So the drug, I want to put some good news out there. So the drug that I was talking about last week, which is hydroxychloroquine, that malaria treatment, was now mentioned this week by President Trump. And he's trying to buy up as much as he can for testing purposes. Australia, I think we received our amount of test kits, seriously underfunded test kits, and I think we only had 200,000. They didn't want to use them all. Medical staff are tested more than once, whatever is required, but the criteria to become tested, I've got 2 friends who seem like they have it. They're in lockdown in Sydney. self lockdown, and they have said that they didn't meet the criteria to become tested. They didn't go overseas, and they didn't come in contact with someone who's confirmed case. That was the two questions they were asked. And the only other way to get tested is if you have a sudden onset of pneumonia-like symptoms. Well, this wasn't sudden onset. It took about 2 weeks for it to get worse. And so they didn't meet the criteria. No, you're not getting tested. Just good luck with that. And this is what I'm afraid, Mickey, is because they didn't buy enough test kits to broaden the criteria, that we've sadly let it escape. We've let it go out of our control, and now inevitably the only thing we can do is like larger shutdowns. I think it's not going to get better. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think the shutdowns are going to be bigger and last longer. Remember those locusts, Mickey, that I was talking about? In Africa? They've spread to the Middle East now.
Oh yeah, that's a problem as well.
Right. So the last point I'm going to make is just what kinds of shutdowns are we looking at? And I've got another piece of good news in mixed into this. So in the US, it's the NBA, the NHL, pretty much all of the sports are shut down. Even sports betting. You got to think about the sideline industries as well. They're shut down. The whole of Vegas is basically shut down. Every single conference that's ever been imagined, they're shut down. And so schools in Australia are out. My two girls' schools, two different schools, are because of their age, they've been given the work from home packs already. We've pulled our kids from school. They're not going back to school again. And that's good, so they can do all of their normal studies from home. There's facilities for them to be able to do that. Of course, in Australia, we've got the work from home advice. It's already begun, and non-essential travel is going to be banned, I think, from tomorrow anyway. And unless you're in a frontline safety role of some kind. But one thing that came out this week, Mickey, that I think it began last weekend, and last week was when the telcos were reporting back to the government and saying, well, our internet's loaded up, like it's full. We can't do any more about it. And they gave them a week to examine it to see what they could come up with. And they've just gone, nah, I think it's the NBN, which is full. And they go, but didn't we just install the NBN? That's the National Broadband Network. Yeah, we did. Why isn't it big enough to handle all the traffic? Well, it's like the telephone system. If you pick your phone up and you try to make a call, if everyone in your country try to make a call, 10% will get through. Just like your cell phone. So not everyone is allowed to make a phone call at once. It's just the thing. It's the infrastructure was never made for that kind of concurrency. Having people work from home, now the whole family's at home, or everyone's using higher bandwidth connections than they would normally do, and we've hit the wall, and we're not even in lockdown. So it's not the remote system that's failing us, it's the connection to it. And Netflix, YouTube, Google, Stan, Amazon, they've all been requested by the Australian government to downgrade from high definition to standard definition on their streams.
It makes it easier. Yeah.
It makes it easier, yeah. But I'll tell you, still pay for the high definition. There wasn't a standard definition choice when I was going to watch Mad Max yesterday. There wasn't one. It was just high HD. Okay, well, I'll pay for that. Oh, look at that definition. It looks terrible. And this is the thing. So, there's no blame, because I don't really care. We have the ability to work from home. We have the ability to save a majority of the population from it. Hopefully a living wage comes in for those who, like is announced in whatever respective country you're living in, to maintain some kind of level of financial support to all the small businesses, whoever they can be, supported however they can operate and do so safely and not put any of their staff into jeopardy. Those things, Mackie, I think they're the linchpin. They're the the pivotal point in all of this, the holiday from rent and mortgage payments has to be the best thing. But how do we climb out of the hole in the end?
Well, that's going to be tomorrow Mackie's problem, right? No, it is. I mean, the thing is this: you need to deal with what you can. I mean, if you can make plans for the future, great, awesome. That's it's highly commendable. But this particular crisis we need to face and just live through it and do the best we can. And the thing is this: so there will be a boom economy after this. There always is. Rebuild, reestablish. Probably different in the same way that 9/11 made the world different.
Yeah.
My suspicion is, this is what I suspect will happen. Every airport in the world will have temperature checks all the time, everywhere, in a similar way that the security after 9/11 got a lot tougher to get on planes. So we'll see that, and potentially doctor certificates, depending on where you travel to in the world. Are you fitted well enough to actually travel there? Are you fitted well enough to travel to that part of the world? I mean, what are your vaccinations up to? I can see a scenario where your travel will be dependent upon your vaccination papers, and so you'll have it'll be like a section in your passport or an extra document you carry. I mean, these are things that I think will come out of this as an extra added thing to change our lives.
So the question I keep getting asked every single day is, do I personally think that there would be a war, a conflict after this, or maybe during, don't know, or will there be an instigation of a one world government? I know it's there. Go ahead, because I've got nothing. I can't say anyway. Look, I'm not even part of the elite. Goodness.
Look, we've been thinking about this kind of stuff for 40 years, respectively. Well, each one of us separately. So 80 years altogether. One world government, highly unlikely. What we can see are probably global regulations, and that could usher in potentially something like that, but not immediately, no. So the answer is no, because the World Health Organization didn't really shine here. It's not like, the knight in shining armor came to help. Yeah. That didn't happen. I didn't see that at all. What I did see, though, is that nation states have failed individually. So I can see, at least in this particular space, but which would be a good thing, closer cooperation and global standards, global response standards. As soon as something happens, as soon as certain numbers are shown, globally there's going to be a reaction to this. A war, So
that's taking advantage of a situation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I get that. Honestly, and this is the shiny side out. So I can say whatever I want. This stuff, yeah. The only this is going to sound crazy. The only scenario would make sense as far as war is concerned if it's an external invasion. What do I mean by that? Well, exactly what I said, or an internal invasion, as it were. So either the inner earthers or our friends from outer space decide to come and attack us in this time of confusion. Because this is the perfect time. If there ever was going to be disclosure, or some kind of hidden agenda by introducing our, and I'm convinced that these are aliens or extraterrestrials in the sense that most of you think they are, because I've got this whole anthropomorphic problem. It's now is the time to introduce them and also introduce the superior tech. In V, I don't know if you recall this, the remake, but this is the remake. They came offering everybody massive medical benefits. Remember that? They came, landed, and everybody got these free cancer treatments, free everything treatments. So everyone was really thinking, oh, wow, this is so awesome, right?
So we can eat you.
Well, that was the game plan, but the point is, this is something I can, if disclosure were to happen, and if they wanted to establish a benign or beneficial or somehow accepted alien presence, and again, I'm not convinced that alien is the right terminology here, on this planet, certainly a civilization that's far superior to us technologically, this is the time to come in with some kind of cure or help or whatever it might be. if you wanted to do that. I can't see a single nation state player taking advantage of the situation on a global scale. Is this possible for smaller things to happen? Could India go to war with Pakistan? Could Russia go to war with China? Could something flare up in the Middle East? Well, yeah.
So
sure.
I think the Middle East is probably out of fuel, right?
Possibly.
The Saudis basically bankrupting any shale oil or any other production with their, the dumping of fuel on the market is crazy. But if there was, I think in a weakened state, it would be harder to fight against them. Because of our confusion. That's the only place I put that as plausible, because I don't know what's going on. I'm not privy to anything. I just don't know.
Again, this is not an unexpected event, and yes, something can come out of this. And as far as the one world government is concerned, it's definitely a possibility. A war scenario. Again, if anything, to be honest with you, more civil war scenarios. Unlikely for nations to attack each other over resources, toilet paper or whatever. What I can see, though, is internal conflict arising from rationing, curfews, maybe martial law. If it comes to that.
What about trying to crawl out of the debt that we are going to be faced with as a result of this?
Well, there's that too, right?
That might be the
massive
thing.
amounts. Yeah, a lot of people potentially will lose their jobs. I mean, these are people that can ill afford it. These are people that are what we like to call, I guess, the unskilled labor force. Meaning, people that might be in retail or in hospitality. And I'm not saying they're not skilled. Of course they're skilled, but their job is directly affected by this kind of thing because their job no longer is there because there are no tourists or there's no people in shops or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a really tough situation, and if you've got a small business like a cafe, and you employ 5, 6, 7 wait staff, kitchen staff, and bar staff, or maybe 20, who knows, right? And you shut down for a month, 2 months, and 6 months, you cannot sustain paying them. Oh, say, there's music. Don't go away. We're talking about the moon.
We sure are.
Hello and welcome back to David Mackey's Chinese Head Out. That's right, on WZZR broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio or maybe freedomslips.com now. Either way, come into the chat room if you can. We've spent an hour talking about, obviously, the topic at hand and everybody's mind and everybody's, concern, the coronavirus or the COVID-19 situation. We just finished that, I think, and I don't think we need to talk any more about it because it's depressing. We do want to talk to you about our ongoing show cycle topic, which is the moon. Because the thing is this, right? These things happen. While this pandemic is bad enough, I also believe that we can't be distracted from the bigger picture. We're distracted from the message we are going to bring you. Okay, and I do believe that the pandemic that we experience right now is actually playing into that. I believe it is part of the plan, the game plan that the elite has for various reasons. We discussed the hypothesis, so it's important to understand the world at large, right? It's important not to forget that this is all part of a bigger picture, right? And hopefully we can do something going forward to avoid this kind of thing, because again, while I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, and what I'm talking about is the deliberate seeding of this particular disease. Okay, is it possible that this is a coincidence? Sure, it's possible. Is it possible that it was seeded? The answer has to be yes, of course. It's possible that it was seeded. For various reasons, and we've spoken about that. But Dave, let's talk about the moon. In fact, we've talked about the moon at length. We've talked about spaceship moon, which is my favorite, is the moon, in fact, the biggest artificial construct in the solar system. Unless, of course, you can show me a bigger one. There's a lot of things wrong with the moon in the context of the Earth-Moon-Sun relationship. And it's really you really have to look at it from the 3-point relationship here: Earth, Moon, Sun, and how they interact and how they are sized relative to each other, and how they are tidally locked, at least the moon around the Earth. And there's a whole bunch of stuff around it which, statistically speaking, shouldn't be. I mean, if one of them were to happen, okay, the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's also 400 times closer than the sun, allowing for a perfect solar eclipse. That's a coincidence, but it doesn't stop there. It's the only body, or the only relation of a satellite and a planet in a solar system like it. No other planet of Earth size or similar has a satellite this size. The only planets that have this size satellite are the gas giants. Right? Jupiter, Saturn, they are the ones that have these massive moons, not Earth, not the Earth. The Earth is too small for a moon like this. There are other things. The same phase of the moon is always shown to the Earth. Always. Same. Impossible, you think. No, that's where we are. There are other things we mentioned. But Dave, what fascinates you most about this topic?
The fact that ancient writings tell us of a time when there was no moon. Because there was a time, according to these documents, where the moon did not exist. In ancient writings and traditions, one can find proof for a time when the moon did not exist. Democritus and Anaxagoras mention that there was a time when no moon could be seen in the night skies. In describing the history of Greek region Arcadia, Aristotle writes that the Pelasgians lived in the area since old or very old times, at a time when the moon did not exist. He says that they owned the land before the moon. Giordano Bruno, a 16th century Italian philosopher, is reputed to have written in De Amenso.
Don't worry about that.
That's pages 56 to 57 in this book. There are those who have believed that there was a certain time, as our mythologian says, when the moon, which is believed to be younger than the sun, was not yet created. The Arcadians who dwelt not far from the Po are believed to have been in existence before it, the moon. Theodorus writes in his first book that the moon had appeared a little while before the war which was fought by Hercules against the giants. Aristosius and I'm really killing these names.
Dionysus.
Go on.
It's Aristocius and Dionysius, Chalcidensis. Dionysus Chalcidensis.
As long as you had to chew on it for a bit too, I'm all right.
I know, right?
Yeah. Wow, because you did Latin as well, so it helps you.
It does.
In the first of their works confirmed the same. I'm thinking that's Mancius. Said that the Arcadians were born before the moon, and so they were called Procelean, meaning before the moon. Bruno, I'll stop in this next one. Bruno goes on to step upon the sensibilities of future scholars by noting that the Earth, which is of the same species as the moon, is of creatable and destructible substance and is truly animal and even mortal, although divine. Therefore, the planets with the worlds are able to be created and destroyed, and it is not possible that they have been eternal, since we have proved them to be alterable and consisting of changing parts.
Now, the key thing is to remember that he writes this in the 16th century when most people still believed that the sun revolved around the earth. So he was truly and in fact he got into massive trouble for it with the church, obviously, right? He was a really visionary thinker. So, but it's interesting that a visionary thinker like himself also mentions the times from before the moon. Velikovsky, in fact, it's Immanuel Velikovsky, and he wrote the book Worlds in Collision. We've spoken about this before. And in fact, Einstein thought that Velikovsky's theories were very interesting and had merit, and he spoke about the sudden polar shifts and things like that. And you know, it's a very fascinating read if you get the time. Is in regard to the period of Earth's history when it was moonless. Velikovsky quotes everyone from Democritus to Anaxagoras to Aristotle and Apollonius of Rhodes to show that such pre-Hellenic time existed. Those humans living at the time were called Pelasgians, Proselines, as Dave has pointed out, before the moon, and Arcadians, which are pre-Danae and pre-Deucalion. They were said to have dwelled in the mountains, fed on acorns, and lived as aborigines, in some translations as animals. Now, Apollonius, whom we have just mentioned, from Rhodes, he mentions this. He talks about a time when not all of the celestial objects, this is a bit more detail, existed in the sky, before the time of Deucalion's and Pyrrhus generation, which is before the cataclysm, because the Greeks also, obviously, speak of the Great Flood. When the moon did not exist, and the only humans that existed were the Pelasgians, living on the mountains of Arcadia, which is a region in Greece. And again, these inhabitants of the moon, and of whom it is said that they dwelled on mountains and fed on acorns before there was a moon. In Plutarch's work Morals, we find the following. There were Arcadians of Evander's following, the so-called pre-lunar people. Similarly, Ovid wrote, the Arcadians are said to have possessed the land before the birth of Zeus, or Jupiter, same really, and the folk is older than the moon. Stephanus of Byzantium wrote, Arcadians and females both exist before the moon. Interesting, the reference to females there. Hippolytus refers to a legend that Arcadia brought forth Pelasgus, of greater antiquity than the moon. Lucianos, in his astrology, says that the Arcadians affirm in their folly that they are older than the moon. Some allusions to the time before there was a moon may be found also in the scriptures. In Job 25:5, the grandeur of the Lord who makes peace in the heights is praised, and the time is mentioned before there was a moon and it did not shine. Also in Psalm 72:5, it is said, Thou wast feared since the time of the sun and before the time of the moon. A generation of generations. Now, a generation of generations means a very long time. Of course, it is of no use to counter this psalm with the myth of the first chapter of Genesis, a tale brought down from exotic and later sources. Evidence, and this is where I'll give it to you, my friend, because we're now moving to another part of the world. Tell us about the evidence.
I wish I'd written
that has also been found.
Read out that biblical passage. I could do it in the Monty Python style. And because Tones is listening to the show tonight, I just want to say, Moon of Ben, it's good. Black tune. It needs more cowbell. So evidence has also been found in other parts of the world. In Bolivia, symbols on the wall of the courtyard of Calasasaya, I think I missed a syllable, built in 13,000 BC, provide evidence that the moon came into orbit around the Earth at a specific moment in time thousands of years ago. Long before what mainstream historians refer to as recorded history. Moreover, the calendar gate in the same site provides evidence that a smaller satellite once rotated around the Earth. Tones gave me a thumbs up. The oral traditions of Colombian Indians of the Bogota highlands in the eastern calderas of Colombia refer to a time before the moon. In the earliest times, when the moon was not yet in the heavens, say the tribesmen of the Chipkas. Africa also provides its own evidence. According to the Zulu legend, the moon was brought hundreds of generations ago by two brothers of alien form. To the Aboriginal nature of the pre-moon folk and the fact that they lived before the birth of Jove is particularly noteworthy. While Velikovsky and those scholars suggesting a moonless Earth time have never made the apparent connection to Sumerian records and the Anunnaki, many of whom of the latter have a date of birth or arrival in the environs of Earth, which would have occurred after the time of some of Earth's original aborigines. In fact, the time of a moonless Earth might likely correspond to the time when Homo erectus was roaming about the planet, dwelling in mountains, eating acorns, and becoming the archetype for future aborigines. The possible assumption that the Arcadians were a civilization is without confirming evidence. In addition, the habit of Sumerians to consider civilization and the world as an interchangeable term does not eliminate the Arcadian civilization, in inverted commas, as being essentially an Aboriginal one. Meanwhile, all the historians tie together all the pieces of the puzzle fit, provided, of course, there is no recarving of the puzzles to make them fit into an incorrect position. Meki. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You would have introduced the title patterns, and there would have also been, yep, there would have also been huge pull and mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Just ground up at the coalface. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Awesome. he's just like Carl Sagan in his early days. Neil deGrasse Tyson was changing the narrative. But as Charles Sagan, I'm not going to say he got bought out, but he started to toe the party line, and where I've seen that big change in Neil as well. That's right. That's That's true. Or they crash, or this moon, the orbit was sufficiently different that they ended up colliding together. All of that makes sense. Mm. Why? Well, it's so far away, no one can prove you wrong. Well, Meki, yeah. So the further we go into the natives, the earlier custodians of the land stories, the more we find out it was or seems to have been within their custodianship of the land rather than before they were custodians. So, yeah, go ahead. Yep. No, you. No. So there's two stories, 250,000 years ago, or more recently. Doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right. They created them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 But they established. Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, they established a secondary base in South Africa to mine gold specifically in that region. That's the next created the human race to do the toil, and then they made a second base, and that's been talked about. Extraordinary. Just look, that's the thing, right? So within that time scale, whether it's a quarter of a million years ago, 250,000 years ago, or it's within the 80,000 years, is something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good on you. And you'll be surprised. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 That's right. Mm. Well, how old was Noah? 700? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa said that Zulu legends believe the moon to be hollow and the home of the python or Hitari, or as David Icke calls them, the reptilians, a race of intelligent extraterrestrials. The legend states the moon was brought here hundreds of yeah, who were the leaders of these reptilian extraterrestrials. These two were known as the Water Brothers, as they both had scaly skin like a fish. This tale is very similar to the Mesopotamia and Sumerian accounts about two chief leaders, brothers Enlil and Enki, lords of the earth. Credo continues telling the Zulu legend of how Wowane and Panku stole the moon in the form of an egg from the great fire dragon and emptied out the yolk until it was hollow. Then they rolled the moon across the sky to the earth, which brought about cataclysmic events on this planet that ended the golden age of the past. Reptilian or Moon Man. Kudu Mutwa claims that the Earth was very different then as it is now before the moon had arrived. There wasn't any seasons and the planet was perpetually engulfed by a canopy of water vapor. People did not feel strong glare of the sun that we do now, and they could only see it through a watery mist. The earth was once a beautiful place, a lovely place, lush and green with giant redwoods, violets and ferns with a gentle drizzle and mist. The water canopy fell to the earth as a cataclysm of rain when the moon was put into place in the earth's orbit. This symbolized in the Bible when it rains for 40 days and 40 nights. The arrival of the moon and the reptilians changed everything on earth. It modified the earth's rotation angle. The earth turned over on its axis as we are upside down now, as the legend says, and brought more powerful tidal systems that once had been much calmer. Women did not menstruate before the moon arrived. Zulus and other native African accounts say the moon was built far, far away to keep an eye on people and as a vehicle to travel the universe. Credo says that the reptilians' giant mothership is the moon, and that's where they escaped to during the cataclysms of the Great Flood, which they had caused by manipulating the moon and creating other cosmic events. Oh, can I? I know it's my favourite. So this is the original moon story, and I was invited to Uluru to tell this story, though I didn't end up making it there, just letting you know. So this is the story of how the moon got into the sky, and it comes from Cape York, which is that little cutout at the top, you know, the peninsula part near the cutout at the top right hand side of Australia. Many years ago, people realized that a light was needed at night time because they found it difficult to walk around or to hunt. The sun lit up their daytime. Something was needed to light up the night. They held a big meeting, and one idea was to collect a huge pile of firewood during the daytime hours and setting fire to it just as the sun set. People thought that the fire would be big enough to light up the bush so they could hunt and walk around and have karaoke's. Most of the people thought that this idea was impractical. One member of the tribe had a great idea. Why not make a special boomerang that would shine, throw it high into the sky, and at night this boomerang would give enough light to allow people and animals to see at night. They made a giant boomerang. People tried to throw it in the night sky. They tried, but they just couldn't throw it high enough. Then a very thin, old, weak man stepped forward and politely asked if he could try. Everyone laughed at him, and when they saw his weak, thin arms. One of the elders was a kind and wise man, and he said the old man should be allowed to throw the boomerang. And throw the boomerang the old man did. It went higher and higher and higher, and finally stayed up in the sky as the moon, shining down onto the people. The shape of the boomerang can still be seen in the moon every month. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so simplified, yeah. Run, dog, run. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. It's funny because the moon isn't always there. I know. It's not even. It's not a daily thing that you get to see. It's not. Yeah, the frequency isn't daily. It's really funny. And there's times when there's no moon during the cycle because it's not there at night time, right? It's funny. That's really bizarre. Mm-hmm. Remember that there's no changing seasons, and the differential in temperature depending on where you lived would be the climate. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Precession of the equinox. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. that there's some cataclysmic events, and suddenly all of this mist disappears and reveals a moon. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeah. Me too. Oh, I completely agree. The just being able to take your mind off the seriousness for a minute is also, I don't know, rehabilitative. No, what am I looking for? I'm looking for, uh, yeah, that'll do. That's the word I was looking for. All the vitamins I'm taking, and all the immune system, and all the suppressants, everything that I'm taking at the moment is not helping my brain today, and I don't know why. It's quite astonishing. So maybe I think I've just got too much focus on the virus, to be honest. I think if we just look forward to what's going to happen within the next week, it may be that we'll be looking for sources. I don't mean SOURCES. SAUC. Yeah, see you go. See, I told you, I'm not even there. Mickey, I wanted to do a video and some cooking with the bare basics videos and put them on YouTube, because I think not a lot of people know how and what to do, and it might be nice, because I don't know what you've been prepping. I've got a pretty vast pantry full of stuff, and I could keep eating pretty well. But when you get down to the bottom, you get to the base of what it is that people are buying. Well, what can I make with that? I can make glue with all the flour that I can put on my raw pasta if I don't know what I'm doing. Or, I can make, want to keep eating through the months that we might be in lockdown. Ooh, there's a good one. Oh, I like that. Said I didn't even do it. I think I'll do it next week, and that was meme of the week, because of all the coronavirus memes have just lighted me. The lawn chair with a sprinkler beneath it. That's the toilet paper beater. So if you weren't able to buy a bunch of toilet paper, you just have a lawn chair with the bottom cut out and a sprinkler beneath, right? That's pretty funny. The Mad Max memes. Here's Dave and his friends after just a few weeks, and it's the Mad Max, bad guys cruising the wasteland. That's really funny. So everyone laughed when I got a supercharged car, Mickey. So hopefully well, that's what I was just about to say. My Mad Max outfit hasn't arrived yet. So, music's going to start any tick of the clock, and I think that's it now. Stay tuned for Jebez. Awesome show, and we'll catch you next week for show number 419. And look, if you're affected where you live, do the best to be nice. Still try and keep your social and your moral values pretty high, all right? Take care.